Gi-hun returns to Seoul 4 years after winning the previous Squid game, determined to dismantle the organization behind it. He quickly realizes he's under surveillance and removes a tracking device hidden behind his ear. Meanwhile, police detective Hwang Jun-ho, who survived being shot and falling into the sea at the end of Season 1, is secretly investigating the games as well. Gi-hun enlists the help of his former loan shark, Mr. Kim, and an associate, Choi Woo-seok, to find the mysterious recruiter who lures people into the contest. They finally spot the recruiter at a subway station, where he conducts a cruel experiment by offering homeless strangers a choice between a piece of bread or a lottery ticket. Most choose the lottery ticket, and the recruiter furiously tears up the bread. They refused. When Mr. Kim and Woo-seok confront him, the recruiter overpowers them and forces the pair into a deadly game of chance, a rigged round of rock, paper, scissors combined with Russian roulette. Mr. Kim loses and is shot unalive, while Woo-seok survives by luck. Jun-ho, who has been tailing the recruiter, follows him to a hideout where Gi-hun is waiting. Cornered, the recruiter reveals he was once a soldier in the Squid game, who even unalived his father during a past tournament. He sneers that the desperate players are scum and deserve their fate. He then challenges Gi-hun to a final duel of Russian roulette, a gamble that ends with the recruiter unaliving himself. Shaken but alive, Gi-hun teams up with Jun-ho. Among the recruiter's effects, they find an invitation to a secret event, giving them a lead on the people running the games. Using the unalive recruiter's clues, the crew discovers a VIP Halloween party invitation that might draw out the Squid Game's frontman. They plan an ambush. Gi-hun will attend the party alone while Jun-ho and a team of mercenaries follow in secret. Gi-hun even implants a tracker in his own body so Jun-ho can trace him. Before leaving, he makes a quiet phone call to his estranged daughter, listening to her voice as motivation to end the savage games. That night, Gi-hun arrives at a masquerade party full of costumed VIPs. Almost immediately, he is approached by a masked guard in a pink jumpsuit who escorts him to a private limousine. Jun-ho and his mercenaries tail the limo from a distance. Inside the car, Gi-hun finds himself isolated as the frontman's voice comes through a speaker. Gi-hun demands the games be stopped, calling out the frontman for his cruelty. The frontman responds with cold amusement. Suddenly, through the limo's window, Gi-hun sees Jun-ho's convoy of vehicles under attack. Gunmen ambush the trailing cars, forcing them to crash one by one. Realizing his allies are walking into a trap, Gi-hun urgently bargains with the frontman. He will surrender and rejoin the Squid Game as a player if the attack on his friends is called off. After a tense moment, the frontman agrees. The ambush is halted, sparing Jun-ho's life, and Gi-hun's fate is sealed. The limousine changes course, heading straight back to the games. Gi-hun is determined to destroy them from within, even as he is taken captive again. Elsewhere in Seoul, Kang No-eul, a young North Korean defector, struggles in her own way. Working as a mascot at a children's theme park, she desperately needs money to rescue the daughter she left behind in the north. She has grown attached to a sick little girl named Nayeon at the park, and often helps Nayeon's father, Park Young-seok, care for her. One evening, No-eul receives the same mysterious card that Gi-hun once did. Seeing the Squid Game as her only chance to earn the fortune needed to save her child, No-eul decides to accept the risky invitation. She quits her job the next morning and goes to the secret meeting spot indicated on the card. There, she and other desperate individuals are met by masked operatives. In a twist, No-eul is not made a player but is recruited as one of the anonymous staff. She dons a pink jumpsuit and circular mask, entering the games as a guard rather than a contestant. By the end of the night, Gi-hun is being transported back into the games as a contestant, and No-eul rides alongside the game's enforcers, embedded within the organization for her own hidden mission. Gi-hun awakens in the familiar dormitory on the remote island, now filled with 456 players in green tracksuits. Among the groggy newcomers, he is stunned to spot Park Jung-bae, an old friend from his neighborhood, now also caught up in the deadly competition. Gi-hun quietly urges Jung-bae to stick by him and warns that this game is a matter of life and death. Soon, a masked manager announces a new rule to all players. After each game, the survivors will vote on whether to continue. If a majority votes to quit, the games will end, and the prize money will be distributed among those still alive. A murmur ripples through the crowd. For the first time, the contestants have a possible way out before the end. Gi-hun hopes to use this rule to get everyone home alive. Meanwhile, off the coast, Jun-ho's team tries to follow Gi-hun's implanted tracker signal. However, upon arrival, the Squid Game staff discovered the device and removed it, so the signal abruptly cuts out. Jun-ho realizes they've lost their guide. Undeterred, he begins searching the surrounding seas for any sign of the hidden island, determined to find a way to infiltrate and help Gi-hun. Back in the arena, the first game is revealed. Red light, green light, played under the gaze of a giant robotic doll. At first, many players are shocked because it appears to be a simple kids game, but Gi-hun knows better. He urgently shouts a warning that anyone who is eliminated will be unalived. Some believe him, while others remain in denial. Once the game begins, horror strikes. At green light, the crowd moves forward, but when red light is called, the doll's sensors pick up any motion, and snipers immediately gun down those players. The field erupts in panic as dozens of contestants are unalived within seconds. Thanks to Gi-hun's warning, some people around him freeze in time and survive the first deadly round. Amid the chaos, one player, a loud rapper nicknamed Thanos, who managed to sneak in drugs, makes things worse by shoving a nearby man during a freeze, causing that man to stumble and get shot. Thanos grins, seemingly enjoying the bloodbath as players around him scream. Despite the terror, Gi-hun stays focused and reaches the finish line before time runs out, pulling others to safety with him. Among the survivors are Jung-bae and a brave young woman, Cho Hyun-ju. As the dust settles, one fallen contestant on the field is heard whimpering. He was shot, but not unalived outright. Acting on instinct, Gi-hun and Hyun-ju step back onto the field to try to help the injured man. To their shock, a pink-masked guard raises a pistol and executes the wounded player with a single shot. Unbeknownst to them, that guard is Kang No-il, who chose to end the man's suffering and deny the corrupt staff any further cruelty. The survivors reel in horror as it becomes clear that mercy has no place in this game. When the remaining players are herded back to the dorm, many are in shock. Seizing the moment, Gi-hun addresses the crowd. He reveals that he was the sole winner of a previous Squid game, lending weight to his words. Gasps echo. A former winner in their midst means he truly understands the situation. Gi-hun implores everyone to use the voting clause to their advantage. He urges a vote to end the games immediately so they can all go home alive. That night, the masked guards appear to take the vote. One guy discredits Gi-hun's previous warning and is like, "That's fake news. Come on, let's all stay and make a bunch of money," rallying the crowd. The vote is held in tense silence. One by one, trembling players press either X to quit or O to continue. At first, the scale tips towards quitting, but eventually, it evens out. Finally, the deciding vote comes down to player 001. With all eyes on him, the man slowly presses the O button, voting to continue the games. The final tally shows a narrow majority in favor of continuing. A mixture of relief and disappointment floods the room. Gi-hun closes his eyes in frustration. His plan to free everyone falls short by a single vote. He doesn't realize that this player 001 is actually the frontman in disguise, ensuring the vote swung in the game's favor. With the contest resumed, the players try to regain their composure. Player 001, still posing as a kindly old man, befriends Gi-hun, thanking him for speaking up and sharing a heartfelt story about his sick wife to earn Gi-hun's sympathy. Gi-hun, moved by the elder's plight, promises to keep him safe. Meanwhile, other bonds form. Lee Myung-gi, a disgraced online streamer, reunites with his ex-girlfriend Kim Jun-hee inside the game, who is unhappy to see him because he had ghosted her. Thanos and his accomplice Park Nam-gyu start bullying Myung-gi in the dormitory, attempting to intimidate him. Surprisingly, player 001 intervenes with unexpected authority, scolding the younger men and diffusing the confrontation. Soon, the loudspeaker summons everyone for the second game. Players are instructed to form teams of 5. Gi-hun's group of friends quickly bands together. Once the teams are set, the game is revealed. A 5-stage relay of traditional Korean childhood games, to be completed by each team while all 5 members are tied together at the ankles. It's essentially a 6-legged race that requires perfect teamwork. The mini-games like flipping tiles and shooting marbles must be finished in sequence within a short time limit. If a team fails to finish, every member will be eliminated on the spot. When the round begins, chaos and cooperation intermingle as Gi-hun's team stumbles early on, but by supporting each other, they manage to complete the 5 mini-games just seconds before the clock runs out. The crowd cheers, and many other teams also succeed once they realize that collaboration is their only chance. However, a few few groups fail to meet the deadline, and guards immediately execute those entire teams. After the game, as the contestants catch their breath, Gi-hun's team exchanges names and personal stories, strengthening their bond. They discuss hopes of what they'll do if they survive. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, not everyone in the staff is playing by the rules. A subgroup of corrupt guards has been illicitly harvesting organs from players to sell on the black market. Kang No-yul, now one of the guards, witnesses this gruesome side operation. The masked officer in charge warns her to stay silent about what she's seen. Kang, horrified, feigns compliance but internally resolves to stop these atrocities if she can. That evening, another vote is offered to the players. The prize fund has grown significantly with the day's casualties, tempting some to push onward. To everyone's surprise, it's player 001 who speaks up, suggesting they should consider quitting now while most of them are alive, and many traumatized players are inclined to agree. However, the same guy from earlier claims that the split is not yet sufficient to pay off anyone's debt and begins a one more game chant. The votes are cast, and the majority still opts to keep playing. The games will continue to a third round. Outside, our crew is still looking for Gi-hun, using a drone to scout the islands. When they think they found something, it turns out to be a trap, and they realize one of them must be a mole. Unexpectedly, it turns out to be the nice old fisherman who unalives one of the mercenaries in secret. The next day, the third game brings a psychological twist. The players assemble in a brightly colored hall for a game called Mingle. They are told that when prompted, they must form groups of a certain number within a short time limit. Anyone not in a group when the time expires will be eliminated. Contestants shove and scramble to clump into groups of that exact size. Friends are dragged apart and promises are forgotten. Players like Thanos, who don't care, easily discard allies to survive. Gi-hun manages to save his team to form a valid group in the first round, but a few unlucky players fail to find a group and are immediately shot. With each subsequent round, the required number changes and panic grows. In the final round, the game calls for an odd-numbered group, guaranteeing that some players cannot be evenly grouped. A mad dash ensues for the last available slots. Jung-bai finds himself racing alongside player 001. In a flash, the seemingly gentle man reveals a dark side when they find someone already in the safe zone. Without hesitation, he snaps the man's neck to remove him from contention as his teammate watches in horror. When the players return to the dormitory, the atmosphere is grim and distrustful. Despite the internal turmoil, the guards proceed with the next scheduled vote. By now, the prize money accumulated is enormous. A significant portion of the survivors are traumatized and ready to quit. This time, player 001's vote causes a tie. Gasps and murmurs fill the dorm. According to the rules, with no majority, the games are temporarily halted. The masked man announces that there will be a 24-hour break and then a final revote to break the tie. The pause only heightens the dread. All players realize that during this break, those who want the game to continue have a strong incentive to eliminate the quitters to tilt the next vote. As night falls, fear permeates the dorm. Tonight, they are given sharp utensils with their food, so Gi-hun knows the war will begin. A little later, a big bathroom brawl erupts, and in one corner, Myung-gi is forced into a one-on-one fight with Thanos. In a desperate struggle, Myung-gi grabs a metal fork and fatally stabs Thanos in the neck. Gi-hun and his loyal friends huddle together, preparing for the worst. Sure enough, under the cover of darkness, chaos erupts. The remaining die-hard contestants who crave the prize initiate a midnight massacre. They launch a surprise attack on the other side, using makeshift weapons and sheer brutality. A violent free-for-all breaks out reminiscent of the deadly riot from the first season. Beds are overturned, players run or fight for their lives, and the room devolves into absolute mayhem. Gi-hun, anticipating this, had urged his group not to participate. They barricade themselves behind bunks and defend only to survive, not to unalive. When the frontman's soldiers storm in with guns and restore order, dozens of bodies litter the dorm floor. But earlier, Gi-hun made a plan. It's not about fighting each other. We need to be fighting the mass guards. That's how we will stop the games for good. They pretend to be dead and ambush the guards, taking their guns and chasing them out of there. Gi-hun assembles his rebel army, including, ironically, the frontman of the games himself, who Gi-hun had become best friends with. They head towards the control room, but they're way outnumbered by the pink soldiers soldiers and pinned down in a huge firefight. The tall girl turns out to be the MVP, but one guy totally freaks out and runs back to the room and hides. Gi-hun and his friend push on ahead, but they get pinned down in the stairwell. The frontman arrives with reinforcements and they make a plan to get around behind the guards, but the frontman finally betrays them and makes it seem like he was killed, and finally, the rebellion is defeated. Gi-hun is forced to surrender by the frontman, who is back in uniform, but he doesn't unalive him. He wants to teach him a lesson, and so instead unalives Young Bae and leaves Gi-hun to finish the games. That's where Squid Game Season 2 comes to an end. If you like this recap, hit that subscribe button for more of the best recaps of TV and movies.